It's a pleasure to see you all today. Welcome to Live from My Drum Room and my special guest, Chris Layton. And without any further ado, please welcome my pal, Chris Layton.
Hey,
Hey, and there he is. All right. I love,
hi
man, what
John. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. Man, it's so good to see you, buddy. It's so, what
You
a sight for
too.
sore eyes. Thank you. I know, man. It's been, it's been a minute since we've seen each other in person too. I think it was,
Yeah,
I don't think we've spoken a number of times, but I think not since leaving Zildjian have I actually been able to see you in person. So,
I don't think so. Come on back, John. Come back into the business. I like working with people like you. No
oh,
one quite like you, but anyway.
thank you, buddy. Thank you. I was, we started talking about this a little bit off the air too. I was so excited to meet you that first time that we really got to hang out at a Experience Hendrix show. And then when you ended up coming over to Zildjian not long after that, it was a real honor for me because I've been such a fan of your drumming for so long. So,
Oh,
thank-
well, thank you. Yeah, that's funny because I remember when I was sat down, I thought Mitch has got a whole new set of cymbals over there, Zildjian, the kind that I grew up with. Even though I defected for a while, and I was playing him, and I looked over and I saw you. I went, "Huh, who's that guy over there? I wonder." And played a little while longer, and I thought, and I go, I gotta go. This guy's just over there, like looking at me. I gotta go find out. Never seen this guy before. He's not with the show. I gotta see who this guy is. And it was you.
it was
Yeah,
me. Yeah, yeah. And I
I'm
was,
glad all that happened.
me too, buddy. Me too. No, and I was looking at you and I'm going, oh, it's Chris Layton and he's playing some Zildjians. Yeah, yeah. Man, it was a trip. I think back to, that was 2007. And in like November, you guys are up at the casino in Hampton Beach, and Mick Taylor was on that gig. I got to meet Mick Taylor that first time, and but
Yeah.
but just I was there to see Mitch, and then I knew you were on the gig, and I was just hoping to meet you and say hello, and then we ended up really kind of just connecting. I think really quickly, and I think I saw you at the NAM show in January after that, and then we had a few conversations, and yeah, it was meant to be.
For the viewing audience, John DeChristopher said, "Hey, if there's anything, don't take this the wrong way. If there's anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to call me." I went, hmm.
What does
Well,
that mean?
it just so happens that, I think maybe I should call him up.
Oh man, I know. Yeah. Well, it was kind of part of the job back then. Was to not be too pushy, but seriously to let you know that I wouldn't want you to walk away thinking, that I wouldn't be interested in working with you. So I'm glad the message got received.
It's all worked out just like it's supposed to, I'd say.
I think so. Oh man.
Yeah.
Well,
So what's happening? What do you want to
yeah,
know?
I
What
want to
can I
know.
do?
Are you back out? Have you started to kind of get? I think from what I've seen, you've been back out there working with Kenny, doing some tour dates with.
Yeah, in fact, the last week we got off a month run, which was pretty much many states, mostly the West Coast, but west of Dallas. And Tuesday I fly to Des Moines, Iowa, and we start another two-week run that's around through the Midwest, and
Yeah,
so on and so forth. He's got a full year outlined, and
that's
in
great.
between all that, in the times off, we something happened back in the fall that the Archangels came back together, and so we're going to be doing some shows
That's great. I I,
in the
I heard about that. Yeah.
yeah, which we've already done some, and that's been fabulous, really.
That
Yeah.
and maybe any new recordings or anything, or is there going to be any talk of that, or it's going to be touring mostly?
Well, we've got these shows that people have offered us, and we're going to go do them. And in my way of thinking, it's let's just take it as it comes.
Yeah.
There's been talk about Doyle and Charlie. That's Doyle Bramhall too, and Charlie Sexton writing songs, us getting together. And but everybody's been also busy otherwise. Charlie's been working with Elvis Costello and Doyle with Clapton. And so we kind of like, well, whenever we get around to doing anything, we'll just cross that bridge when we get to it and see what it means. So in the moment, you know, we were the band that made that one record before we broke up.
Right.
But
right,
we've
yeah.
incorporated a lot of other stuff into these shows, these recent shows. And we're just playing music. So we're playing those songs, but you know, every show has been really different. So it's been kind of exciting because, you know, we've all been together in a lot of ways over a long period of time. So we can just sit down and start playing literally anything, anywhere, and it usually sounds pretty good. So
I'm
we're
sure.
a blues band. We're a blues band. That's kind of what we're doing. We're playing it as we feel it.
That's great, man. I'm happy about that. I'm happy that you're back. You know, I think of you as a guy that's you're used to being on the road, you know, and working all the time. And the couple of years that we had that layoff, you know, that must have been. I mean, were you able to do anything locally at least as far as keeping busy playing wise, or?
I did something within the tail end of that first year, from March into the fall of 2020. And
Yeah.
I did a Sunday afternoon thing, an organ trio thing. Me and Mike Flanagan and Sue Foley at a place called the Sagebrush, a real old Texas dance hall. And everybody followed all the stuff. But we sat down, we played 3 hours every Sunday
Oh,
for,
great.
I
Yeah.
don't know what we did that for 2.5 months. But no, this month that I just did was the first time I've actually been out. I did stuff online sessions and some other things, but it was the first time in 48 years that I had not played for that long. It was, what's funny was, like, right before that happened, we were doing a show. I was with Kenny in Southern Louisiana, and we were sitting around dinner. And I said, what would you guys think? What if you didn't work for like 6 months or a year or something, for whatever reason, how you would think about your work or what it would mean to you? And I was like, oh, yeah, everyone, I got to do scales and my armature and my lips and my, you know, my all this stuff. I said, no, I'm just talking about your, you know, how you would think you would conceptualize you and your life. And they went, you know, whatever. So it was like 10 days later came the lockdown.
Oh my God.
A couple
Yeah.
of guys come and they go, what were you talking about back there at that dinner? I was like, I don't know. It just kind of came to me. Right. And so then I had my chance to see, oh, what does everything mean? You know, like lots of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what came to me, that no matter what, I think that, you know, for me, that my life really as a player is really me being on a stage and making music with people in the moment. And I'm the drummer in that situation. And that's really kind of the sum total of all that. That's
Yeah.
kind of where I live. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Being part of a band and yeah, one of, you know,
Yeah.
one of the components of you know, of an ensemble of players. Yeah. And a darn good one
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Thank you. You know what? We did make a couple of records, come to think of it. In that July of 2020, I did a record with Mike Flanagan. It was me, Mike Flanagan, and Sue Foley. And it was his record. And we did that. It was great. We sat down in one day and we did it. Everybody, it was one of those things where you sat down and you go, I am so glad that to be doing this. It sounded great. And then like 2 weeks later, we did Sue Foley's record, the same three people. And that record's doing really good for her. She's nominated for an award in Canada. And
Great.
she's out touring that right now. So these were two things that happened in a short period of time where you really got to like realize what it all means.
Yeah. And when you did that record, did you do it all together or did you do it? You did. Yeah.
We sat down and we just played through the songs, a few of them a couple of times, and most of it was just one time through takes. And there was this energy and this whole thing about, was like, it's kind of like being real thirsty in the desert or hungry, and then you get a bite to eat, something to drink, that kind of feeling where you go,
yeah.
I'm so glad I do this. I'm so glad I get to do this.
And I'm sure, like you said too, like you do one take and you know you're not going you won't get anything better than that one. Like even if you did another take, that's going to be the one because
Well,
it.
well, it's funny, after we got done, as we were doing that on Mike Flanagan's record, we'd play a song. I go, that was really good. He goes, yeah, I think that sounds good. He goes, let's do another song. He told some people this. He told me, he said, you remember that? He goes, like after about 4 or 5 songs, you look at me and said, are we doing a record? Are we doing a record? Because we were just playing music, and we were kind of how we made Texas Flood. That's kind of how we made the tapes that were the Texas Flood tapes that became the album.
Wow. We
were just making music and go, yeah, that's cool. Let's do another song. So like, are we doing a record? For sure?
Well, talk about, I wanted to jump back too, to like, we talked a little bit about, again, when we were offline, about your sort of early days as a drummer and taking some lessons, but really pretty much being self-taught, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah, with the help of everybody along the way as an inspiration, or a little bit of like, well, look, check this out. And, everybody helps.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And who, like, when you started like getting into music as a, 10 or 11, 12-year-old, like what were some of the bands you were listening to at that time? Like, was it British bands? Was it Elvis,
Well, you know what? No, never really much Elvis. And that was just a little bit earlier. In the scope of like a 6-year-old's life, 3 or 4 years is like everything, obviously.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But I did hear, and basically I was somebody who was listening to the radio, because I thought, wow, if everybody's listening to this stuff, I go, you should probably listen to it. And then you liked it, some of it, whatever. Beatles. My sisters bought this Chubby Checker record, and it had the twist on it, and I heard it, and for some reason that thing did something to me. I got excited and my hair stood up, and that's when I went and cut a couple of branches, started beating around on stuff, and they happened to be from a poisonous bush, and my mother freaked out, and that's when my dad saw that, and he stopped my mother. He said, okay, he goes, just hang on a second. He goes, go wash your hands and come back here. I thought, oh, guy's I'm going to get a spanking or something. Back in the days when people spanked kids, more often, I think. And he came back with this stack of 78s in these bound volumes, and he started playing me. The first thing he put on was the Chick Webb Orchestra. Wow. And I went, wow, what is this? Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Glenn Miller, Harry James. And we spent like hours, and he just kept playing all these bands. I went, what in the world? What is this? He told me, and he talked about it.
Wow.
And he went back to the closet and came out with some brushes, threw down the Sunday paper, and started playing along with some of it. And then he told me that he had been a drummer in the Non-Commissioned Officers Club, the jazz group, when he was in Italy during the war. And I went, wow. So I just kept on playing. But early on, it wasn't long, when was that? That was 6 years. That was been 1961. And so I just started borrowing. They wouldn't get me a drum kit. It was like, you want a drum kit? Go find some money. They were tougher back then,
Yeah.
So you want to do all that stuff, you'll find a way to do all that stuff. It's like, but I heard on the radio one day, I heard Hey Joe by this band called the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Wow.
And I went, what is that? And that drummer sounds like those guys on those 78s, but it's a whole different bag.
Right.
There was something that I pulled from that. I went, wow,
Did you ever tell Mitch that story? Were you able to?
Yeah, I did.
You must have told Mitch that. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked a lot. Mitch and I had some great times together. I mean, I remember one conversation sitting on the curb. We were working together. We were sitting on the curb of some street in Portland, Oregon, and we talked about all kinds of stuff. I really liked him. He was such a whack dude, he was such a witty guy, and I love the guy. He was just so out,
Yeah, yeah.
And his playing, you like go, who comes up with shit like that?
I know.
At the time, but we talked about those things. Michael Shreve, when I first heard Soul Sacrifice.
Yeah.
And in the original Santana band, I went, wow, I just love all that. So all these things kind of ignited my curiosity and kind of inspired me. And I had a big Motorola console. The family did. I set up, when I finally got a drum kit, when I finally made enough money, and then my dad was willing to match that, and I got my little Ludwig downbeat kit. I set it up in front of the Motorola, and I took all these records and I'd put them on. I'd see if I could cop the feel and figure out the licks. And, like probably most other people starting with anything,
Sure. Yeah.
it's accessible. And I had fun doing it. That was kind of the thing. I loved it sitting, as a 15-year-old going, yeah, I think I'm going to play Fire now. And I'm going, what's he doing? How do you do that? I mean, he's doing a lot of stuff there. And, in regards to Mitch and the experience in Fire, the track. But so I don't know, it just kept on. And, now it's,
Yeah.
however many years later.
And so,
66.
so you started playing, like you had your drum kit around 13, say 13, 14?
Right as I was turning 14, I actually got my own drum kit. I actually struck deals with people to rent drum kits from them. I had a friend of mine whose older brother had a red Sparkle Ludwig, and he stopped playing them. And I said, well, can I play him? And the older brother said, no, you got to rent them from me. And so I rented them from him for 50 cents a week. You do whatever you can,
Yeah. He now works for Live Nation, that guy, whoever he is.
I wonder where he is. I
I'm
forget
kidding,
his
no.
name. Yeah, no. He might actually.
No
I
offense to
work
Live
for
Nation.
Live Nation. Hey, I work for Live Nation too.
Yeah. I think, yeah. I don't anymore, but I probably used to. No,
Yeah.
but that's a great story. So how early on at that point did you start like playing with other guys, like get into bands and stuff, like start playing in a band? I'm guessing not long after, right? I mean, you seem like
No,
you,
I get, 16 years old. I met some guys. We used to gig in the garage and we'd play some parties, or anybody who played anything. I was down in Corpus Christi, Texas. The drum
yeah,
set rental deal with the guy started in a little town north of there, named Mathis, Texas, 6,000 population farming community. And there weren't any record stores. And the radio station we got was KTSA that would beam from San Antonio. And so I listened to that radio, and the rest of it was it was catch can.
yeah,
And so anybody that had anything, we say, well, let's get together and do something. And it could be me and a guitar player. I mean, a guy playing a piano. The whole duo idea was early in my development. But at 16, I found a couple of guys and we got together, we jammed, we played some parties. And I actually didn't have my first my professional gig until I had turned 18.
no
I
kidding.
really didn't have much experience. And I played a club gig and it was a cover band. And I remember thinking, I don't want to play other people's music. I mean, I was arrogant, I want to do my own thing, but I did that for a few
Yeah,
months, and it was 4 sets a night, and it was good for me to do that. And then I started going to Del Mar Music School. We were talking about that, which started the year there. Pretty much all I ever did was convince the department to let us put together a stage band, because North Texas had one, and why didn't Del Mar College in Corpus Christi? And so between that and surfing, that was kind of my life. Surfing and a stage band, and the gig that I had at the Rogues Club. And
that's great living,
it was
man.
after, it was great living. My dad had died, and I woke up one day. I told you the story about Doyle Horton, who was kind of a renowned Texas rudimental teacher. He
Yeah,
told me I had to hold the sticks I had to hold the sticks traditional, and I'd switched from traditional to matched a few years before because I saw Billy Cobham do it. And he said I couldn't study with him unless I gave up the grip. And so I got up and I left and never studied with him. And, a week or so later, that's when I completely just left Corpus Christi and decided to move to Austin and see what might happen.
wow.
Yeah.
And that you were about 20 when you moved to Austin, I think, right?
Yeah, I had just turned 20.
You just turned 20.
My birthday's in November. And I remember I arrived in Austin in 1975, December 18th.
Oh, that was my
Yeah.
15th birthday. Wow.
Really?
Yeah. It's my
No
birthday,
kidding.
December 18th. Yeah. How about, see, again, it's
Small world, John.
it's a small world, yeah. So
Wow.
so moving to Austin must have just been like opening a door that was incredible in terms of like playing with other people and the opportunities, right? I mean, although, I mean, I think of it as being, I know what it's like now. It had to be a scene back then.
Oh God. The two things I would say about Austin. When I got to Austin, I actually didn't. I moved into a little town named Manor that was 14 miles outside of Austin because some friends of ours who had come up here to do a project, and it turned into like a huge drug bust, and everybody bailed out and ran home. Had just paid rent on this little shack out in this tiny town. And when I heard my friend say, "Yeah, man, we just paid rent like day before yesterday," I said, "You just paid rent and now you're back here?" I'm like, "Yeah, the house is just sitting up there." And I turned to a couple of friends of mine, Ricky and Sid Sanchez. I go, "Let's move to Austin." And so we quit school. We got in our cars and we just went to that place. No furniture. And we just drove up and we go, "Now we live in Austin." Now what?
Exactly.
So the two things I'd say about Austin was that there was music everywhere, all kinds of music. It was a really, really cheap city to live in. It was cheaper than Corpus Christi.
Wow.
And we got up here and went, wow, this place is cheaper than, we could go buy stuff. We go, this is cheaper than it is in Corpus. But there was that it was cheap and there was so much music everywhere. And the other one is that nobody gave a damn that we were there.
Yeah.
They go, we don't know, we go, hey, can we play? Go, no. You got like 20 other guys who want to jam and play. We don't care who you are. We don't care where you came from, or we don't care. And so like anything else is like the long road. The long road is that we just kept trying to figure out how can we get in there. Well, that band broke up and, there's a long kind of more intricate story about that led me to ultimately meeting Stevie. Yeah. And us finding this common thing that he seemed to be surprised that I knew who Ray Charles was and loved Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder and Miles Davis, and of course, Jimi Hendrix and so on and so forth. And I was amazed that he was so surprised because there was kind of there was one little faction of music in Austin that was kind of like the blues scene. Well, there was a reggae scene, there was a country swing scene, a country swing scene. There was cosmic cowboy stuff going on. It was just crawling with all these little different genres of music, and everybody was like one big community though. It wasn't segregated as people living together. Right. Because everybody was like, yeah, I know Joe Ely. And there's all these, there was like the country rockers and there was the outlaws and there was, the jazz guys, the bebop, there was a bebop thing going on and all this stuff that was happening. But in the blues thing, music, it was just music that was happening. But there was a thing that, Stevie was playing blues and we jammed together inadvertently. I actually sat in for a drummer who was late with my roommate's band and we kind of hit it off and he came over to the apartment. That person, we were roommates and he worked in this band. Stevie was in the band, drummer was late. I sat in. Stevie kind of kept looking around. He came over to the apartment the next day. We started talking. That's when we started talking about musical commonalities. He's like, "Hey, you like all those people?" I was like, "Yeah, man." I said, "Man, I'd love to work with you. I don't care how we do it, where we do it, what it means, how much money. I don't care about any of that stuff." I go, "I'd just like to work with you." And then a short while later, he asked me to join the band. Him and Lou Ann Barton together.
Was he pretty well established at that point, Chris? Like, was he one of the? No, he wasn't.
No.
He wasn't. Not yet.
No, God, no. In fact, I was working with a band called Greasy Wheels, which was kind of considered a cosmic cowboy country hippie band, and they were on London Records, and I was getting a paycheck every Friday, and that was actually that's when I woke up and went, I'm really a professional drummer, and I'm playing music that I'm helping make, not being in a cover band. I went, huh? Yeah, I went through this kind of crisis where I'm going, I want to play drums, but I grew up going, my dad was a businessman and people they got a chance to go to college. They did, and, made something of themselves and all that stuff. I was like, well, it was kind of a crisis of confidence and like path and like, what do you really want to do? And what can you expect to accomplish? All those kinds of things were swirling in my head. But when I was in this band Greasy, I was like, I'm a professional drummer. And I work every day and I get a paycheck and I pay my rent and my bills and taxes and all the rest of it. And so when I went to what the idea with Stevie was, he was kind of a shot loose guy who didn't have anywhere to live. He didn't have a car. Sometimes he borrowed equipment. the leader of that band, Greasy Wheels, took me by the shoulders and he said, "Kid." They used to call me Kid because I was 20. I was 20 years old, just turned 21, and they were all older. They were in their 30s. Like, "You're making the biggest mistake of your life doing anything with that guy.
Oh,
He's a shot loose guy. He doesn't have his shit together. He's like this and that." I go, "I don't care, man. That's where I know I need to be." So, and then I left and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute. I have to pay rent next month. We don't even have, what gig is that we have?" And it was a really shot loose thing. So it was a long road.
yeah, yeah.
It was a long road.
And was it his guitar playing that just like spoke to you, and you just knew in your heart, like, I got to work with this guy, man. There's something about this guy that's just so special.
No, it was that.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the kind of the guitar player that everybody came to know. He wasn't that guy, but he played when I first saw him, which was one time before with that band. And then when I sat in because the drummer was late, I go, there was a thing about him that I couldn't even put my finger on. And that's what it was. I went, "What is that? What's going on over there?"
Yeah.
This guy has something going on. And I don't know what it is, but I've never experienced it with anybody else. I've never encountered it. And I go, and I was absolutely fascinated by that. I go, I just know that there's some kind of treasure there to, that maybe we can all unlock together or something. I don't know what. I'm just making up words now.
No, but I know what you're saying though. But you felt something that like even with people telling you like, stay away from this guy, you're like, no, man. I gotta see where this is gonna go.
I've never met anybody that was more real and committed to being like real. Meaning, like, does it mean something to us? And if it doesn't, I don't care what it means. Otherwise, it means nothing. If it doesn't mean something that's real. And to me, that was the gold standard. Because I think that everything comes after that, honestly, in my experience now after all these years. Just me is that these other things can be like these trails of fool's gold. I want to do this so I can do that, and I want to do this so I can get that, and I want to do this so I can become this, and I go, is it real? And I go, that was one of the biggest tragedies of losing Stevie, because when Tommy joined the band, we all three were really together on that. We didn't really care about anything past the point is like, does this feel real to us? Because if it doesn't feel real, then it's just bullshit. And we shouldn't be doing whatever it is in the moment that we're doing.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't want to sound like we were like, kings of any type, other than about examining how we felt about what we did, because we had plenty of other issues, that we struggled with. And by the time Stevie passed away, we had gotten most of those settled. That's why it was like, wow, it seems like the future is really wide open now, and then boom, it all ended. So, that was a hard one because,
I would say, I mean, as an outsider looking in, I would say you were exactly right that at that point in time, it seemed like you guys had really kind of established yourselves as, knowing that the band had been together, 10 years at that point already anyway. I mean, you'd made a bunch 13. Of records. 13, okay. You'd made 13 a bunch of records.
I played with Stevie, yeah.
Wow. But by 1990, like, it was just, you were poised to really kind of, it seemed to go like another level,
Well, I had all these narratives going on in my head. I'm thinking, wow, because I was always kind of like the business guy of the group. And then I've told you before, my dad was a General Motors car dealer. So I grew up kind of wandering around the dealership and looking at people in the accounting department and in the shop and in sales and parts department and, the general maintenance of a decent sized business. So when I got into where I was in the middle of the music business, I thought there's a lot of stuff that needs to be paid attention here, because I already had experienced it. Nobody taught me the stuff specifically, but I realized the existence of it. And I saw that, and I see it in back, at least in that point in the music business, the idea that, well, if I'm just real good at what I do, that a bunch of neat stuff will just happen for me. And that I'll just, but when at the point that Stevie passed away, I looked at this, I went, wow, like, we're in the arenas and we've got a full scale tour of South America. We were doing a thing with the State Department to do 4 shows in China and couple of shows in Russia. And that was before the wall came down, and all this stuff was big deal stuff. And then we were looking at, and I'm thinking, you know what, I'm going to be wealthy. You know, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to be playing arenas, and maybe I'll buy 2 Ferraris, and you know,
Yeah.
all that stuff. That's like, and then when it went away, I went,
Yeah.
well, you know, this is pretty fucked up, you know, on that. But and then yeah, so I did. There was a lot of reckoning through the years. So you know, that's never what it was really about anyway. So it does, all that specifically didn't really matter. Don't get me wrong. I've done well, and there's nothing, you know, I'd rather have done well than done really poorly. I mean, on the material
Sure.
scale. So,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
that's not what drove us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. No, and I don't think anybody ever felt that way about you guys, that it was there was any sort of commercial influence there, you know, or motivation. It was like you talk about music that you played from your heart, you know. It was because you know, because it wasn't. I don't. I'll say this. I know you won't take it the wrong way, but it wasn't music that was for everybody. You know what I mean? It wasn't pop
Right.
music but for people that loved what you guys did, it was so soulful. You know, it was like it was just so good for the soul and heart. You know, like
Well, you know, it's
real.
funny because finally we had all these, you know, through time early on, we had all the major labels come look at us, and they went, yeah, got a really good band, and the guitar player's just unbelievable, but you guys aren't going anywhere with all that stuff. You know, that's like old stuff. Nobody cares about any of that stuff anymore. You know, when Texas Blood came out, there was Talking Heads, Culture Club, Flock of Seagulls, the Cult. I mean, it just psychedelic furs, and there was a whole different thing that was happening.
Yeah,
Um, the Police, that was a band I went. Those guys, I think they got something that I went. That's real stuff to me. You know, look that way. That's really like
yeah,
they're in there. But people said, yeah, they don't. Nobody cares about that. And if it hadn't been for John Hammond, who had got slipped a tape of us by his son, who loved the band, he said, "I love you guys." And Stevie, I haven't heard anybody like that since Robert Johnson. And he made the call to CBS Records to his guy, his friend up there, Greg Geller, who could sign. He said, "Greg, just sign these guys. I'm telling you, it's going to be the right thing to do." He goes, "And it needs to be heard." And so he went, "John, if you tell me to do that, I'll just do it." But I say that because years later, people say, "Yeah, you know, we had bets going around the hallway that you couldn't come out of the gate with more than 10 or 15,000 sales just because we're doing business up here, you know." So we had bets at the coffee machine, and you know, then when, you know, Texas Blood sold almost 600,000 records, like, we love you. We always knew that you could, you know.
yeah, yeah. Of course.
I didn't say any of that. I forgot to say any of that stuff at the Rock Hall inductions. Like, we always knew you could do it, you know.
Oh man. Hey, I apologize because there's a whole bunch of great comments, and for whatever reason the feed didn't come through. I had to refresh it, and now I'm seeing all kinds of great comments that you can look at later. But I'm going to see if I can find any questions or anything that I should just throw at you. But in the meantime, I want to ask you about your playing. I want to ask you, like, so you got into started playing in bands around age 16. You've been playing a few years at that point. Um, had your style become more or less fully formed, or was it beginning to get formed at that point, or was moving to Austin like when I hear you play a shuffle, it sounds so natural, like you were born playing it just because it's and people here like me on the East Coast think that all you guys from Texas just wake up one morning and can play that shit, and it makes us crazy, by the way, because
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's so good. No, but I'm just wondering, like, was
Hey, welcome to my club. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
no, was Stevie's influence a big part of that? Like, as far as how your playing developed, or was it already kind of a style and that he was?
No. Oh, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because there was this great story in my life. I got a call and Stevie said, "Hey, man," he goes, "what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just here at the apartment." He said, "Why don't you come over to the Whole Sound? It's over here on Red River's a little recording studio in a little tiny 1 room basement deal." And I went, "Okay." So I went over there and I walked in and there was a drum kit and there was Stevie standing there. His guitar was on the guitar stand. And there was W.C. Clark, bass player, guitar player, singer, songwriter. Great. Just love the man. And WC says, "I want you to come over here and sit down here at the drum kit." I went, Stevie kind of went like, "Yeah, go ahead and go." You know, I went, "Okay." And he said, why don't you play? You're from Corpus Christi, right? I said, yeah. He goes, why don't you play me a shuffle? So I sat down, started going, kind of more like you can't get enough of your love. And he goes, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no. He goes, I want you to play quiet. He said, I'm going to come over and say a few things in your ear. He goes, no, don't look at me. He goes, just look straight ahead. He goes, I'm going to come over. And he came right over here into my right ear. And he bent over and he said, I want you to play as quiet as you can. And he said, you know how to play a swing beat? I went, yeah. He goes, why don't you double that? This is what we call the double shuffle, right? Ta-ta. He said, yeah, you know, the ta-ta, chew tobacco, you know. And
That's
I
what he
started
was
playing.
saying to
He
you?
said, yeah. He said, well, you know, that's a later label, but that's kind of the chew tobacco. So I started playing it, and he said, no. He goes, what? He goes, so I want you to. He goes, keep playing. He goes, don't look at me. I'm gonna keep talking. He goes, keep playing, play quiet. And I was going. He said, I want you to think, you know, you're from the coast. He goes, I want you to look out there and imagine like the waves are coming. There's swells, right? And they turn into the waves. Swell comes up and it breaks. The swell comes up and it breaks. He goes, I want you to think about that. And then this is what's I'm telling you,
Whoa.
this is priceless. This is priceless. All of a sudden, my feel changed and I was doing something I had never done before. And I started playing this thing and I looked up and Stevie started smiling. And then Stevie went over and put on the guitar. And then the three of us started playing a little bit of that for a while.
Wow, man.
And I was like, and you know what? And we were done. And Stevie said, cool, man. See you later. And they left. And so I left because I don't know where the hell I was. You know, I was like, wait a minute, this is not my. And that was that. And then he asked me to play in the band. So the thing about, you know, the shuffle was that when I started hanging out with him and we're working, he had all these great records. His brother Jimmy had and all the people in that realm had all these wonderful records. And I started listening to everything, the slow blues, shuffles, all of it. I go, man, they all sound really, really different. And they're really unique to the person playing them.
Right.
They're simple to do technically. I mean, technically, anybody who can almost play a drum set can technically do them. So
Sure,
I don't have anything really to say about that.
Well,
I was talking to Aaron Franklin, the guy who's kind of renowned for his barbecue and barbecue brisket down here in Texas. And I said, your brisket and all your barbecue. So that brisket is, he said, he goes, that's kind of all I've been thinking about for the most part for 25 years. He said, so I think now what could I, keep looking at it a different way. So I read, you know what, maybe that's what that was, where I listened to all these great people and all these records and go, that's different than that. And kind of go, what is that? How do you do that? How does that feel? And I think it's really, when you talk about cop and a feel, it's kind of used in some other ways and other realms of life. But
I know what you mean. Yeah.
You're going and I go, so that just and I don't know. I don't always know what that's like until I go back and maybe listen to myself doing it. But I think, well, it must be something, parts of it are unique to me because I'm the guy that's playing it at the moment. But it was, I mean, before that and a lot of other things were like, well, it's just a swing beat. Well, it's a shuffle. Well, it's kind of a rock and roll thing where you listen to Earl Palmer play a rock and roll thing, or Freddie B. Lowe, or it could be any number of people. They go and they play these things. They go, they have a signature. And I go, that was what was fascinating to me, was to be able to have a style or a signature, as opposed to being somebody who could technically be able to move through being a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
I'm not kind of, to me, fit in the idea of a band, of an identity, of developing a thing and trying to create.
Right.
On every level.
Yeah.
Whether it was lyrical creation, compositional, theoretical, everything, all the way down to like, what's the creation amongst the players themselves, and how can you put those ideas together to create something that might be unique. To me, that was always just, a fascinating idea, because, we listen to all this music by all these different people that we've heard, and they sound like something different, or they can. A new band comes along and go, I can see where the parts are where they came from, but they're a different thing and they're kind of unique. And I thought, wow, it'd be cool to be more unique than more common, and just following a line.
So did you have that in, were you thinking about that? Like when you started to develop your shuffle, for example, were you thinking, I want to try to play something a little more unique, or did it just happen that way? It just was the way you interpreted it, and it became your thing.
I thought about none of that shit back then.
I love you, man. Honest answer.
No, but no, no, but there was something that I didn't know, and to me, this has been, in 20 years or so, as Stevie passed away, I got a long time to reflect on that and many other things, because that was the most traumatic thing that ever had occurred in my life. It still is. I thought,
Yeah.
what did it all mean, and what does it mean, and what can I glean from how I need to reconcile that? Because it really bent me over, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. I mean, all these things, we all struggle with drugs and alcohol and all that, and that stuff got worse. So I had to come to a reckoning and start trying to unwind, the ball of things. And one of the things that I discovered was the thing that I didn't consciously know, but something that drove me, is that I wanted to try to figure out, how do you get between the lines of life and see what's inside there?
Mm.
And that was just part of it. So everything that I just told you before, I told you I didn't know any of that shit back then, was that I went, yeah, that's what inadvertently, something else was giving me the challenge or the place to be able to try to go there, but I didn't really quite understand it. But I was always continually driven towards it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I think probably you'd probably attribute some of it to being really young still, in your early 20s, right? Maybe mid 20s by that time. And when actually you started playing with Stevie, you were about 23, 24.
When was that? 1978. Yeah.
Yeah. So
20
so
September 78, 23.
23.
Um,
So
what's
pretty
funny
young.
about this? About 5 years ago, I was in Providence, Rhode Island, and there was a guy. He was a drummer. He's a teacher, and I ran into him, and he said, "Oh man, that story that Joe Sublette tells." He was my roommate back in the day. That when we were roommates, he played in the Paul Ray and the Cobras, the band that I sat in with when the drummer was late. And he said, "Yeah, Joe Sublette told me about that story about Stevie and him talking outside on y'all's porch, when he came in." And I went, "I don't know anything about that. What are you talking about?" He said, "Ask Joe to tell you." And so what I didn't know, and only found this out 5 years ago, thereabouts, was that the day Stevie came over to the apartment and walked in on me and found me playing along to a Donny Hathaway record, "Everything Is Everything." That's where we got off into the musical discussion with him saying, "You like Donny Hathaway?" I went, "Oh man, you kidding?
Yeah.
This record's like one of the greatest." He said, I love that record." That's what started that conversation. That when he came to the door, Joe answered the door. He said, "Hey, come out here for a minute." Stevie said to Joe Sublette, he said, "Hey, come out here for a minute." He said, "Has he ever played blues?" And Joe said, "You know what, man? He never has. Never been in a blues band in his life." And then Joe told me, he said, Stevie said, "That's good." He goes, "Oh, it is?" I mean, he said, "Yeah." He goes, why is that? I mean, I don't know. Why is that good? He said, "Because he didn't have a bunch of preconceptions and whatnot about like what things are supposed to be and what they've got to be and what they should be." He goes, "That's cool." So really, me playing with Stevie, and he told me this one time. He said, "You know what?" He said, "Man," he goes, "there's a lot of things about you that I would like to have. I'd like to be more like you in a lot of ways." He goes, "And maybe I got a bunch of things that I could give to you. Together we could be much better together."
Wow.
And so
Wow.
Stevie didn't elaborate. He wasn't a person that elaborated on anything. He just threw things out there.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of like my father. My father was like that.
But I
He would
think what he
just,
said, yeah, but I think what Stevie said to you speaks volumes for me. I think the way I would take that is that, we can learn from each other, and I can definitely, kind of be maybe and not so much influence, but I can learn from the way you interpret things, and you could learn from my way of it.
yeah. And he was
It's
he
deep.
was a really, yeah, no, it was really deep, because I think I know what that meant later on. I came to see, I'm like, yeah, I think that's what because he was just a stellar musician. I mean, he was one of those guys that was just tapped in. I mean, he'd pick up a bass guitar and he was just like, wow, he plays the shit out of bass. It was just like, you know, or he'd sit down at a drum kit and then he'd play like this coolest, simplest. So you go, how does he do that? I mean,
Yeah.
whatever he did, when he touched it, it just spoke.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
you sound great.
there was that thing about him, but you know, he was real hardcore. Like we'd cut a track and we go and listen. I go, he said, what do you think? I said, yeah, I don't know. I did some things in there I really didn't want to do. He goes, well, I guess you shouldn't have done them if you didn't really want to do them. You know, he goes, I like it. Let's keep that one. I was like, oh, I said, he goes, if you said you didn't want it, you didn't want to do them, you just don't do them next time. I was like, but there's no next time for this song. We're going on to the next one, right? Let's do that. I'm like, all right, you know.
Oh, that's great.
I mean,
that's
you know, anybody, you know, you make records, you go, you know, I should have done this and it would have been cool to do that. And, you know, they go, yeah, well, because he was one of those guys that he'd play something and go, yeah, I like that. I played it. He meant to play it. And that was one thing about him. He was so deliberate about things while he was open and inspirational. I go, how do you do that? How do you be absolutely deliberate about everything like that? But you're open to the moment and whatever comes out, it's absolutely diehard, heartfelt, deliberate, but it was also a moment of inspiration.
Yeah.
It's
right. Like deliberate, but yet spontaneous, right? It like,
right.
Which are counter to each other really in many ways, but that's
I know
incredible.
it's, well, you know, I don't want to make it, I mean, he wasn't perfect, you know, I don't want to make it sound like there was no flaw or fault in any of that, but it was like, that's what you hear him play something, we play and you go, I never heard him play that before. I never played it before, but I like it. You go, it's so committed and dedicated. And, you know, I went, okay, that's priceless, really.
Yeah, that is. I was going to read a couple quick comments here. I think a very good friend of mine, and I think you know him, Davey Wasikinen, plays in the Hooters. He just commented, he said, my band opened at the Wax Museum in D.C. In 1980. Chris was swinging so heavy back then. He was lights out. So,
really? Thank you. I was. Oh,
yeah. Good. You absolutely were. Kidding me?
Oh, yeah. Just trying to get
Reed.
better over here, John. I'm just trying to get better, you know.
No, man.
Always looking for the cut and the swing and the tone. You know, all the rest of it becomes incidental.
Well, you
Thank
have,
you.
You're welcome. And I'm speaking for everybody watching right now. They're just all complimentary and so dig what you do. And I keep asking you these questions because the way you play to me, Chris, it sounds so like organic and authentic. That's why I kept kind of pressing you on the shuffle and like if that was something that was just sort of innate or it was something you worked on. It turns out it was kind of a little of both, it sounds like. And it was I think once you had a little bit of direction, for lack of a better word, you just took to it, you know, and that to me, that's become it's such a signature thing for your playing. It's so beautiful.
Well, I do work where I'll do all kinds of things and I'll get done. I went, oh wow, cool. I didn't do one shuffle.
I got
because I actually do. No, I do. I actually can play other things.
I know you can. No, but like I said, us guys on the East Coast, I'm only kidding when I say this, but I'm speaking for myself. I can't play a shuffle to save my life. I sound like anyway, we won't go there.
Oh, I don't know. You know, I've heard some guys, and most of it's lost to history for the most part. I think if you dig around some really just stuff, I listen to it, I go, how does that guy do that? It's just something, once again, one of those things you can't write it out and you can't quite put your finger on it, but you hear it or you see it and you go, oh, that's it. That is so cool. That's what I've always been fascinated in the musical sense. It doesn't matter what instrument or what piece of music is, when you come across that and you go, there's that magic. We call it magic. That's one word to describe it. Something inside all that. You go, wow, that's really, really, there's something going on in there. I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah.
Nothing like mystery. I tell you, nothing like a mystery for the human condition. I got to know what's going on in there.
No, but you know, I think of you know, guys like Ringo that have some mystery in the way he plays, you know, and like the uniqueness, his feel, and, you know, Charlie and some of those guys. And I put you in that category too, of like a, you know, like you said, it's a simple thing to actually play, yet it's just so much about the feel of it. You know, talking about a shuffle, for example, it's just, you know.
Yeah, no, those are two big guys. I mean, Ringo and Charlie. I've been watching Get Back, and I'm like, how weird is that? I go, hell, it's not weird at all. It's how that's where the sound comes from. You know, like the shots of Ringo and the way he plays, like, that's it, baby. It's like the whole actual motion of the life, you know?
Yeah. I know.
I mean, because it all starts here. It starts here and it works its way out till it finally gets to the tip, you know?
Right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. It's how he, you know, it's his way of executing it. It's almost like that's secondary to where it starts from, you know? And then
I was watching, so we were doing this, we do these things, we call it the Jungle Show. That's a group that we have. It's Mike Flanagan, Sue Foley, me, Jimmy Vaughn, and Billy Gibbons. And so I've used this flowered kit that I have, and I take a bull whip and I hang it on the tom-tom stand. And so we were doing this production, and I thought, I'm going to take the whip out. And I was like whipping it, and I almost like hit Billy in the face with it because I don't know how to crack a whip, right? So somebody said, man, there's some guys, and go on YouTube. And I went on YouTube and I watched these guys cracking whips. And I started noticing, I go, every guy, the actual crack of the whip was different, a little bit different depending on who's cracking the whip, right? So there's a real technical part about it.
Yeah.
And then there's a thing that's a little bit of a style, and a thing that's kind of like maybe like swinging a golf club, or, hitting a baseball player swinging a bat, or, drummer with a drumstick. I was like, yeah, there's something inside all that. And that's the kind of deal that always gets me fascinated. Like, what is that about that thing? Now I might be sounding redundant, but I'm always fascinated.
I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, and I think you're right. It's a good analogy of like how different people achieve the sound, execute whatever, like you say, their grip, their ride cymbal technique, their, like you say, baseball bat swing or golf swing.
Yeah. Well, so when I went to get my first drum kit, this is one of these great moments. My dad says, we go in the Ludwig Octopus kit had just hit the market, right? So they had one in the store window, the big window, and then they had the little downbeat kit, the 64 downbeat sitting over there. And I went, wow, Dad. I go, I want to get that drum kit, the Octopus. He goes, why would you want to get that drum kit? And I said, because it sounds better. He goes, I think that drum kit's the one for you. I go, no, that one sounds better. And then my dad went, I go, what are you doing, Dad? He goes, I'm trying to hear what you're talking about. He goes, I don't really hear the difference in the, he goes, you know what? He goes, I know what it is. He goes, because no one's playing them. That's why I can't hear which one sounds better.
I love it.
I kind of looked at him, and he said, he came over, there was a cymbal on the stand. He goes, see this thing right here, the cymbal? And he started hitting on it. He goes, you could hit that thing 100 different ways, and it can sound 100 different ways. He goes, you can just keep hitting on it and make it sound all kinds of ways. In fact, I bet you couldn't run out of ways to hit that cymbal to make it sound different, but it's just one cymbal. And I was like, I hit on with, I hear what he's talking about. And so I was like, he goes, yeah, I think this little one's the one for you. He goes, you only have 4 limbs anyway, He goes, right. With a hi-hat and a ride cymbal, he goes, you got 6 pieces here to deal with. You only got 4 limbs. He goes, yeah, this is your drum kit.
He's a wise man, your dad.
And I thought about him when I was at the North. I know he was, he's like, he gave me a lot of things to think about. I thought about that when I was at the North Sea Jazz Festival. I stopped in one of the pavilions and watched Joe Morello do a 10-minute drum solo just on his hi-hat. And I went, you know what? Yeah. My dad my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I know. I know. It's I think the older we get too, the more we really appreciate stuff like that too, like the fact that you can get 100 sounds out of one cymbal, and but when we're kids, we think you need 100 cymbals to get 100 sounds. I mean,
Yeah.
right. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
we
It's
do.
we do we think that, and then but we need the wisdom of our dads to say, no, you know what? You just need to learn how to play that cymbal and get those sounds out of it. And I love the
Yeah.
challenge of that, of having a couple of cymbals, four drums, and getting a lot of sounds out of them.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy making, really, for me. And that when Stevie was the first person that I ever heard talk about, he said, I only play for tone. He said, I don't really, all the rest of it just kind of comes after all that. I go, what do you mean by that? He said, tone, to get good tone. And he was playing his guitar and playing it all these kind of different ways. And you hear something, go, wow, that sounds rich. And, I realized that all the people that I really love, they got great tonality. The
Yeah.
quality of their sound is just rich and deep and priceless. And it's not like I can play all these notes and I kind of run right through them, whatever it is,
Yeah.
but they hit it and they go, man, that sounds like something. Each
Right.
note sounds like something. So back to the cymbal thing, we're hitting the drum. It's like, what, something's going on where I want to lay this in there better in the groove and getting into the cut and hitting it in a different way. So, I mean, I can sit and just hit the drum and go, wait a minute, and listen to, like, what does that actually really sound like?
Yeah.
And each one of those, what do they really sound like other than I'm just doing those?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's endless. It's kind of crazy making, because you can sit there and do all that and go, you go, well, you got my thing, right? But do my thing, here's my thing, but to get deeper inside, like, is that thing as quality as it can be? And it is kind of crazy making, because once again, I can hit the cymbal 200 different ways,
Yeah.
and go, but which way are you hitting it right now in relation to all the ways you're hitting everything else that you're hitting, and what do those things sound like, and how do they fit in music, and then what are you doing, and
Yeah. But I know. No, I think that's, to me, it's like it's part of the whole, composition of being a musician is your sound. And speaking for myself, and I'm not you, I'm not a pro drummer, but like I could give a shit about how well I play really on a gig. I mean, I want to play well, but if my drums sound good, I'm happy. And the best compliment anybody can ever pay me, another drummer in the audience, is, hey, your drums sound great. Yeah, I'd rather hear that than, man, you play really fast, or it's nice to people tell you play great, you sound good, whatever, but I want to know how the drums sound. And when people say the drums sound really good, that makes me happy. I feel like, okay, that's great. I can relax. They sound
You know
like
what? That's like the other part of that. For me, is that when I'm dealing with somebody in front, especially like a front of house engineer, they say, "God, the drums sound killer." I'm like, "Good," and then
yeah.
the band says, "It's great. I didn't even know you were back there." those, those
Yeah.
those two things together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually started doing a solo recently in Kenny's band. I do a little about 16 bar break, and um, everybody's doing all kinds of. Everybody takes a swing at it, and I thought, you
Oh,
know what? I want
great.
to see how little I can do and see how good I can make it speak. And I've had real fun with that.
I'll bet. Yeah.
And I'm not into drum solos. It's not a solo. It's almost like a drum. What is it? You know,
Well, like a
everything's going
break,
on, and
like,
then
yeah.
it's a break, but everything's going on. Great trumpet solo, great sax solo, keyboards, bass solo, even. Then
Bass
it
solo.
stops as a boom, 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 and the guitar chick said, "Man, you sound like Whip Shaughnessy, man, old school."
uh, yeah. I'll
My
bet
dad, my
it's
dad used to, my dad used,
swinging. Yeah.
my dad used to keep me up, or he'd wake me up when Buddy was on Carson, and
Yeah.
he'd say, "Come on, we're going to watch this." And he always say, and then one of the things he goes, you see that? He goes, what do you notice about that? He goes, I go, wow, it's great. He goes, no, you see something else about that? I go, he goes, you see how easy that looks? I go, yeah. He goes, that's greatness. He goes, greatness is when somebody does something in such a way that you look at it and you think, you know what, I could get up there and do that right now too. He goes, that's greatness. And that you think that you could get up and do that because it looks so easy. I went, wow, that's heavy.
That is, yeah, yeah. I used to do, my dad and my mom, I'd get to step and watch Buddy too, and I always felt so like inspired. You know what I mean? Like I'd want to, the next day after school, I'd want to play my drums and try to play what thought I could remember him playing. You know, of course I couldn't.
Oh,
but.
Yeah. Well, there was a point to that too, because people say, yeah, you look like you're kind of like doing nothing. It's real easy. I go, I actually used to practice just that. I put a mirror up and go, make it look like you're doing nothing. And actually, I wasn't really doing much of anything anyway, but I made it look real easy. I used to, it's almost like I go, at another time, I'd be embarrassed to say that. But I was like, yeah, I'm going to make this look really easy. I mean, I'm not really doing much anything, but, you know, and we go, yeah, actually, anybody can actually do what you were just doing.
But you know, your style.
I go, maybe that's where the people say, hey, you make you look like you're not doing anything, man. You look really easy. I actually practiced that.
Well, that, you know what, when I see you play really like, you know, like, not that you're not doing anything, but if you close your eyes, there's like, you make it look very effortless until you kind of really break down what you're doing. And like, you know, I keep talking about shuffles and stuff like that, but that's, you know, you've got a very relaxed kind of like, you know, you don't look like you're like, you know, it's not like you're some guy, you know, slamming away and killing yourself, which is great. You look very relaxed and very in control and, you know, like it's easy. So all those years of watching Buddy paid off.
They did. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work fooling people.
Hey, so we're getting close on time. I was going to see if you wanted to just maybe show everybody a couple of your cool drum sets and snare drums, and if you feel up to it.
Oh God, okay.
But
sure.
You know, if it's going to mean messing up the camera angle, don't worry. We can just.
Nah, hell with that. Come on, I can riff. Let's see how good of it. This is my studio. It's a total mess. So let me put my glasses on. Here, I'm gonna let y'all see the ceiling first.
Yeah. Gotta have my glasses on.
There's a bunch of zillion symbols I think I might have gotten from John to Christopher.
I think so.
Through the years.
Very nice.
We got a Ludwig classic maple there. We got the Tama Art Star with the Archangel's front head on it.
Look at that.
That's my messy as hell desks.
It's all right. It's where you get the work done.
That. Is this working?
Yeah.
Hope they won't stab myself. My Lone Star beer sign somebody gave me. A little picture. Can you see all this? Is this translating?
I can see.
There's my old band.
Yeah, look at that, man. Some Grammys.
Some Grammys in the clutter.
Love it.
That's what my wife doesn't want to come in here. She's like, God, I can't believe all that junk you got going on in there.
Oh, there we go. Snare drum.
I'm trying to take a look. Okay. There's my candy corn kit. Part of my snare drum collection. You know, none of this. I did. You know what? I'm glad I purposely didn't come over here and start cleaning up and organizing, so I could show everybody how together everything always is. I got a little bit shy of 60 snare drums. For some reason, I'm obsessed with snare drums.
No, you're not the only one, Chris. You're not the only. There's another Ludwig kit. Looks like.
There's my original Tama Superstar.
That's the Superstar. Yeah.
That's the first kit I played with Stevie. I got some fives. There's my 65 downbeat kit. I used to
the Ludwig,
replace the original. Yeah. Classic maple, you know.
Beautiful.
Shot of the whole deal. B3 organ. Can you see it?
Can see it. I can see it.
Yeah. And my 1950 set of Gretsch.
Oh, you told me about these guys.
Is that working?
Yeah.
John's gonna get your.
Is that pink champagne? Is that the finish on that? The wrap?
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. Man.
And look at this. I wanted to show you. This is really John Aldridge. Let me see if I can get on this.
Can you see John Aldridge. Oh yeah. Look at that. He engraved that for you?
He did. Kurt Waltrip did a signature model for me.
Yeah.
This model. He liked my Ludwig Black Beauty. And he said, I want to get you into one of my drums. And so he decided to make a 5x14 that he never made. And then him and John got together and wanted to do something with whip. And I went, well, I don't really care. I don't really know what to do about that. And so John came up with this idea and then put it on this drum.
Wow.
Is that reading?
Beautiful.
Can you see all that?
Can see it. Can see it beautifully. Yes. Yep. The details coming through.
It's kind of, let me,
beautiful drum.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. It sounds great. It's a great sounding drum.
Brass shell.
It's yes, it is.
Fantastic.
That's kind of
oh, it's a nice tour. It's a nice drum room.
The drum man cave, my wife calls it.
Yeah.
And I'm good with that. Man cave.
Yeah.
Man cave.
Well, buddy, thank you so much for doing this. This has been an absolute pleasure today, and I know everybody really dug it. I want to thank everybody for watching, and just, you know, I know there have been some great questions here, and we couldn't get to everything, but Chris, if you want to go on, this will be on Facebook for a little while, and you can take a look at some of the comments and questions if you feel inclined to answer any of them or not.
Cool.
Right.
I got to get on Facebook. I'm kind of off Facebook.
Yeah.
I'm still on Facebook. I don't go on Facebook, but maybe I'll take a look. This is something. You're special. I always love working with you. I'm sorry you retired.
Well,
John, come back to work, man.
I miss working with you. I do.
Anyway, I always appreciate talking to you.
Thanks, buddy. Me too.
You too. I had a good time with you.
Well, we'll stay in touch, and if you make it out this
I told
way,
my
I'll see you. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I will. I'll get a hold of you. I'll let you know, and we'll hook up in person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
Well, again,
my pleasure being here.
Thank you for doing this today. Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you. And everybody, thank you so much for watching. Big hand for Chris Layton, the man. You can see all the hands clapping.
Cool.
And
bye, everybody.